Hi, my name is Bill Kelly. I live at 19 Welch's Square in Ward 2. I'm here tonight because I'm open-minded. I'm still haven't made up my mind. I've talked to each of the candidates, and they seem like fine guys, all of you. But it's been my experience that what you see is not always what you get. For example, last time round, I voted for Frank Galgay. Frank Galgay has been a major disappointment to me and to many other residents of Ward 4. He had until 4 years ago a record he was in favor of preserving the downtown, very strong advocate. And that's what he campaigned on, that's what I voted for. I also voted for Dennis O'Keefe. And I voted for him because I had a choice of Ron Ellsworth, who I thought would pave over the harbor if he got a chance, and Dennis O'Keefe, who was more moderate, and I was hoping that people like Sheila O'Leary, who best represented my views of the kind of city that we were striving for. At any rate, Frank Galgay voted, and I can name several projects. In fact, I'm going to, without going overboard in terms of time. Andrew mentioned that the rules and regulations are broken more often than they're kept. Developers practice bait and switch in the downtown area. They'll come in with a proposal, and they'll come in with an architect like Philip Pratt, who I consider to be the prince of architectural darkness in this city. And they'll come in with a proposal. For example, one example is the building that they were proposing, the hotel, motel, whatever it was going to be, nobody seemed to know, on Temperance Street, just down from Signal Hill to Battery. They came in with a proposal, they held a public meeting, many of us went to the public meeting and talked about the proposal. It was over then, it was over the limits. But we also had concerns about the building itself, etc., etc. They came back several months later. The developer at that point was saying to meet the requirements that the residents were asking for, they needed about 3 more stories. Council rubber stamped that. Frank Galgay rubber stamped it. We had a major issue on Signal Hill, which I was involved with. I lived in the shadow of Signal Hill, and there was a proposal brought to council to develop a subdivision on Signal Hill. Now this was just on back of the Devon's Pond, across from the Geo Center, in the shadow of Gibbet Hill and Park. And we took a position that if the land was owned privately, it should be expropriated. They should reach a fair deal with the guy who claimed he owned it, who was St. John's real estate lawyer, Al Pike. They offered $30,000, he wanted $1 million. So they went away and said, no. Now he paid, maybe if he had bought it, if he had owned it, he would have paid maybe $300 or $400.
I'm going to just jump in and just ask you to come to a question.
Okay, I'll come to a question very quickly. But I had to finish. Can you give me 30 seconds? Okay. The Signal Hill thing, in the end, council approved. All but 2 people voted for it. Sheila O'Leary and Shanny Duff were against it. And we came back with our research. We found out that the seller, Al Pike, didn't own the land. He's a real estate agent who simply claimed the land, claimed he owned it, city council rubber stamped it. And the developer would have been Bill and the 2 Clark brothers, the famous ones, Bill and Randy. They're in court every other week. They changed the names of their companies like we change our underclothes. And they were at the other end of it. Finally, because we were able to establish they didn't own the land to begin with, never owned it, the proposal was rejected. But Frank Galgay was on top of Signal Hill promoting it. as though he were a member of the group. I had more discussions with him over that, and the disappointment that he was to us as citizens. I guess the question I have to ask, a question to you, Mr. Galgay. I know that you're the same name, you can't help that. Perhaps you're the favorite. What I want to know is if you had been in the same position as our ward councillor, would you have voted against those kinds of developments? And I could name a dozen others. And I'd like to know where the two other candidates stand on rules and regulations downtown and councils continually letting down citizens.
Thanks, Bill, for the question. I'd like to highlight the fact, too, that, yes, Frank is my uncle. We differ on a lot of issues. There's no question about that. And this is a clean slate, and I think this election has been a great deal part of me introducing myself to the residents to let them know who I am and where I stand. I'm all about development. I'm also about responsible development. And I can tell you that I'm a very hands-on person. I have been within the provincial government. A lot of people will say he's a bit of a tough guy. He asks tough questions. I would have to say that I have not seen the finite details of those developments, but based upon what I've read in the media, those are developments that I would not have been able to support. There are a number of other developments within the city at this particular point in time that I'm sure both Frank and I differ on, and I do want to highlight that. That this is about me. He has his own record that he can stand for, and I'll be gladly to speak about any issue that he's voted for or against. And like I said, I'm my own person. I have my own opinion. I have my own values. We share the same name.
I'm very much for a balanced approach to development. As I said already this evening, I'm very much pro-development, but not development at any cost. And there are certain areas in the city that I believe we need to protect. And I say protect because, there are developers' dreams. Places like the Battery and the downtown core, they are the developer's dream. They're money in the bank. And we can't blame the developers for that. They're in the development business. But as the stewards of the city and the custodians of the city, we need to protect it. And absolutely, I would have voted against those developments. They're just wrong. They're inappropriate. There are other developments that I would look at and say that they're wholly inappropriate. And I don't mean to offend anyone who may be here from Kitty Bitty, but there are a lot of houses down in Kitty Bitty that I think are wholly inappropriate. They're not the right scale. They're just not in the right place. And that's the kind of thing that if I'm a member of council, I'm going to stand against.
Yeah, thanks, Bill, for bringing up those 2 points there. Like you said, that's just a couple among many other examples. And then I touched on this in the start, obviously, too. But I think that we need to have the set of rules that we can apply across the board. And unless there's something extraordinarily exceptional about a case, we shouldn't be making exceptions for it. And I think that because right now the way it is, and Bill talked about this, like the bait and switch, like on Temperance Street there. I mean, that drives me bonkers, and I saw that happen a good few times in the 109 council meetings I was at, and it's not fair for the people, it's not fair for other developers who actually follow the rules. And so basically we're in a situation where if you're a developer, and you might as well not even look at the rules, just make up whatever building you want, and then make it 3 stories higher than you think you actually want it, and then take 10 instead of 13 stories or whatever. And so I think that if we started to set the precedent that we're not going to be making exceptions for proposals, then people would start getting a hang of that, and there would be more certainty for the development community. So if you're a developer, you're going to go, okay, I know that we're not going to get more than 4 stories, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm only going to do the development if I can make money at it at 4 stories. And that's the other argument that I've heard, which I don't buy, and I don't think washes with me anyways, is that, oh well, to make this proposal economically viable, we have to make it 3 more stories. Well, if it's not viable, don't do it. You know, I mean, there's loads of other great developments that could happen within the rules here. And so I think that it's the consistency that I think we need to have. And I think as it is right now, as Scott touched on, there's loads of developments that meet the requirements which are not appropriate. And so we need to tighten it up on some ends and maybe loosen up in others, but it just has to be applied across the board, I think is the main thing for me.